Namaskara. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you're listening to this, and welcome to the third episode of Perspective Platoon with Prateek. Now, obviously, I'm not Prateek. My name is Mardiana, and I'm the guest on today's episode, and I wanted to hop on here really quick to share some exciting news with you. I recently wrote and released my very first single. It's called Sorry Boy, and it's out on all streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, all that good stuff. And it would mean the world to me if you go and stream my song and follow me on Spotify, because I have plenty of new songs and new projects that are going to be released soon. Super excited to share it. So go follow me on Spotify. We didn't talk about this in the podcast because at the time of recording, the song wasn't out yet. But it's out now. And it's actually a really big milestone for me because I've been writing, singing, composing music, playing the piano ever since for as long as I can remember. But I never really released any of my own material like officially out into the world. So this is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I'm just so happy that it has manifested itself. So it's out there, you can listen to it, and let me know what you think. You can comment down below, or you can follow me on Instagram. And without further ado, with all that being said, let's dive right into this episode.
Hey Mars, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just to kick things off, I'd like for you to introduce yourself, but introduce yourself like you would if you were to meet a random stranger and sort of mention a few likes and dislikes of yours.
Oh, if I was meeting a random
Right.
stranger.
Somebody you've never met before.
Well, okay, this is easy for me to do because just yesterday I was on an Uber
Uh,
and this guy was asking me so many questions. So I'm just gonna relive that experience. So
Right.
hi to anyone who's watching. Most of my friends call me Mars. My name is Mardiana. I'm Malaysian and I'm currently studying in the US. And my major is professional media, which is like broadcasting, journalism, filmmaking, media related type stuff. Yeah.
What are some of your likes and dislikes? They can be the most mundane
Likes and
things,
dislikes.
but yeah, what are your likes and dislikes?
Well, likes, I don't know, like is kind of like a really vanilla word. I'll just go like love and hate,
Okay.
like
Well,
0 to 100.
like
Yeah.
and or love and don't love. I don't know. Sure, why not? Love and hate. Sure, why
Okay.
not?
Okay. I hate when people spit on the sidewalk, like people who spit. That's just super random.
Okay, fair.
Hate that. I'm not a morning person, so if you're gonna make me wake up before like 10, we're gonna have a problem. That's it.
Right.
If it's for like a class, that's fine. But I'm not a morning person, so I'm not a fan of mornings. I love music. Music is just probably, I would say, like my biggest passion apart from the stuff I do with media, like videography, photography, and podcasting. Music is a very big passion of mine, and it's always been with me since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Other things I love traveling. I love going to new places, and I love being with my friends and
Cool.
family and pets.
And
Can't forget
pets.
pets.
And pets. Cool.
Yep.
Cool. I don't think I'm necessarily a pet person, but I do want to have a dog sometime down the road. I've changed my mind on that, honestly. I used to be scared of dogs, but I'm like, you know what? I'm open to the idea of having a pet. So,
You're a dog person?
well, I actually got bit by a dog, so I used to be scared of dogs, but now I'm like, I think I like dogs.
Dogs are great. They're just
Yeah.
so loyal and like they love you and they'll just
Yeah.
come back to you like every time. Cats
Yeah.
are another story. I mean, I like cats, but I'm a dog person too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if I had to pick between whether I'd have a dog or a cat as a pet, I'm definitely going for a dog, not for a cat. Anyway, so you mentioned that music was your sort of passion. That's something that you like, and you've sort of been doing it since childhood. What's your earliest memory of being involved with music?
Earliest memory. Um, well, I've been playing the piano since I was literally 3.5 years old. So let's just
Damn.
say 3. Yeah, 3 years old. And my mom would bring me to piano class, and it was like a class full of, I want to say like 8 to 10 kids, and we all had like keyboards, not full on pianos, because if you're a little kid, it's a piano is kind of hard to like hit.
Right.
So when you're starting out as a kid, you normally start out with keyboards. So that's what we had, and this teacher would kind of like play things, and then we would just follow along and sing along. And that was kind of my earliest memory of the first ever like music lessons that I took.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's my earliest memory of music. And other memories I would say come from just listening to music with my parents. With my mom, she would listen to a lot of like 80s, 90s pop. So I definitely love my 80s, 90s pop just because of that. Yeah.
Cool. Um, you said piano was like, or keyboard rather, was one of the first things you started playing. What are some other instruments that you play? Because I do know that you play a few other instruments, or maybe a couple of other. But if you want to enlighten the audience.
Well, keyboard is one of them. I guess keyboard and piano is like the same. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
say I play piano, keys. I do play the guitar. I'm not that great at it. I can kind of like strum.
Right.
I don't I don't have like guitarist fingers. Like I have pretty small hands, so it's kind of I just kind of struggle with the guitar and like holding the chords and things like that. But I do play the guitar. When I was in school, I played the recorder. Do you know what that is? A recorder?
The kind
It's
of like
like
a
this.
trumpet.
No, it's kind of like a flute, but you play a
Okay.
flute like this, but you play a
Uh-huh.
recorder like this. It's just a
Okay.
long thing that has holes, and you just like press the holes, and the notes,
Okay.
and it
Cool.
sounds really excruciatingly painful if you play it wrong, but it's fun. Yeah. It was one
Okay.
of those it's one of those things where like they make you play it in school
Mm-hmm.
just because. I don't even know why. But yeah,
Was it
that's
like
all
part
I
of
play.
music class or something like that?
Yeah, it was part of
Mm.
music class. But apart from piano and guitar, which is like my main, I guess, I don't really play anything else. Not that I can think of right now.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Maybe a bit of
Gotcha.
ukulele, but that's it. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
Mhm.
So that kind of falls under the family of guitar, I guess. Is it? Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe. Yeah. I
Yep.
guess so. I'm not.
Hmm.
I'm not musically aware, so to speak, in terms of instruments.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
guitar family.
it's part of the
Hmm.
guitar family. So you're also someone that sings a lot, and you've sung a lot in the university that we both go to, and like in other places. So what's your earliest memory of singing, and is it something that started along with you playing instruments, or was it just something that happened on a later stage, at a later stage?
My earliest memory of singing.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Well, I guess this kind of ties into music class because when we were kids and we had like kid friendly music lessons, I think it's really hard for kids to stay still and like seriously learn how to play things. So singing was a big part of the classes. So we would kind of like vocalize things. Like the teacher will play something and she'll be like ah, and it will play it and we'll be like ah, and like sing along.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that singing and playing kind of came hand in hand for me as a kid with my music lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I went on to primary school and I went on to high school, schools always have like competitions. So like talent competitions, singing competitions, stuff like that. I
Right.
was that kid. I would go for all of them. I won some. I didn't
Yeah.
win some. I don't know. It depended whether I practiced or not. Because sometimes I would get really lazy. I wouldn't practice for a competition and I wouldn't win anything. Or sometimes I would wing it and I would do pretty well and I would win a prize. So
Mm-hmm.
it was quite an experience. I did a lot
Right.
of that kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
growing up. So yeah, primary school, high school, I did sing and perform like quite a bunch. Dancing as well, actually, not just singing, but dancing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like public speaking type of stuff. And then I went on to college and I also did singing in college in Malaysia before I came here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just like for the audience, I
Right.
actually transferred from a Malaysian college before I came here to UCO. And in that college, I also sang with my friends. I had a little group
Oh,
of
cool.
three of us. There were three of us in this little group. We called ourselves the triple threat,
Nice.
which is like
I like it.
well, there's three of us, so that's
Right.
what we came up with, and we would
Right.
basically sing 3-part harmonies.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And yeah, so we went for a talent competition and we ended up winning second place in that
Nice.
talent competition and we won money from it. And that was a moment where we realized we were like, damn, we could do something with this. Like
Right.
we could actually go out and like sing and perform and get money. So that's what we did. Like we booked a couple of performances here and there. We got some money from it. It was like a fun little side gig type of thing with those two friends of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came here to UCO and kind of somehow got involved in singing and performing again. Don't know how, but I just happen to meet the right people wherever I go. I guess
Right.
I meet them
Right.
and then I just get involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They sort of create that path for you to get into it again and sort of
Yeah.
perform. Yeah.
Yeah. When I
Okay.
came to UCO, actually Yvonne was the one, I think, who, you know Yvonne,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
I
So
think I remember
Yvonne,
it was for one of her events as musician, right?
yes, it
Mm-hmm.
was her musical night event. And I think she knew that I sang or something. And she was like, do you want to perform? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I ended up, I think that night, I ended up playing a piano rendition of Can't Help Falling in Love with You by Elvis Presley. I sang, I played the piano, and that was my first performance like here in the States. And then
Mm-hmm.
things just kind of snowballed from there. Like people would just come up to me and be like, hey, there's an event next month. Do you want to sing? And I'll just be like, yeah, sure. And it just went on and on and on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You mentioned that your sort of experience back home where you all did gigs and how after you won that competition, you felt like you could do something with music. I think a lot of the times when we try a lot of things as kids, there's some things that we sort of let go of because we're not fans of it down the road. But then it seems like music is something that stuck with you. What is it about music that keeps you there, if that makes sense?
Keeps me there. I just love music. Like I can't get enough of it. I
Mm-hmm.
okay, so if anyone who lives with me will know, or anyone who like literally knows me personally will know, I'm listening to music all the time. Like if I'm alone, if I'm cooking, if I'm cleaning, if I'm just like hanging out in my room, whatever it is, there's always music playing in the background. And Spotify is just like my most used app. I'm on Spotify like all the time. I have so many playlists. I just love listening to things and
Mm-hmm.
hearing how different genres sound, especially because there's so many types of music. There's like hip hop, there's pop, R&B, soul, acoustic, even death metal, like whatever, people have preferences. That's not my preference.
Right, right.
I'm not listening to metal, not that kind of person. But
Yeah.
I mean, do you listen to metal?
No, I don't. Not really. I mean,
Exactly.
I listen to hip hop rap sometimes, but that's not my jam either. Sometimes maybe if I'm like working out or something and I feel like I need something to pump me up, that's when I listen to that kind of stuff. Other than that, no, I'm not really.
Not really.
No.
Like not in the metal scene.
Nope. It's too loud. It's too loud for me.
Right. I can't. Like, I don't, I mean, no shade. If that's
Right.
someone's cup of tea, if you're watching this, if that's your cup of tea, you do you.
Right.
But yeah, apart from that, I basically try to listen to as many types of music as I can. And I
Mm-hmm.
love understanding how like music has different purposes in different times, if that makes sense. Like, for example, the pandemic that happened this year, and I kind of realized that when we're in a tough time, when like people in general are in a tough time, we turn to art for comfort and for a sense of like familiarity, or kind of a sense of like, okay, someone knows how I feel, or this thing is comforting to me, or it's a little escape from this harsh reality that we're in. We always turn to art, be it music, movies, films, podcasts, like whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
always we turn to art, and I love that about music. The music has always been there for me in
Mm-hmm.
any situation that I've been through.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. Right. Um, do you see yourself sort of staying engaged with music once you sort of branch into your professional career, irrespective of what you end up doing?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll always stay engaged with music, whether it blossoms to a full-time career one day, who knows what could happen, or whether it doesn't, and if it's just
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm doing on my own for fun, just for my own personal enjoyment, it'll always be something that I engage with. It'll always be a very huge part of me. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just very grateful for music, like in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it just sort of that way for you to seek comfort, like through music, irrespective of what you listen to?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's not only comfort. Like if I want to be hyped up, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have a hype playlist of songs and I'm gonna be like super pumped. Or like you said, working out, right? Like it helps you
Yeah.
to, get in the energy and get in the mood. That's also like a purpose. It pumps you up, gives you energy. Or like I don't know, Christmas. Christmas is around the corner as we're on the day that we're
Yeah.
recording this.
Yeah.
And Christmas music is everywhere and it gets you in the mood. If you're gonna
Right.
listen to like an EDM electronic music type of song, you're just gonna be like, it's not the mood. but you put on a Mariah Carey song and it's like Merry Christmas, ho ho ho. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
It just
right.
sets the tone. I love
Yeah,
that. I just
yeah,
love that.
yeah. This is maybe a bit too much information, or maybe a bit of my bit of a pet peeve of mine. I think, well, I work at Starbucks, and we start decorating and doing Christmas stuff like early in November, like mid-November, and I'm not a fan of playing Christmas music like even before Thanksgiving. I'm like, why? Like there's still more than a month left. Like, I mean, I get it. It sort of brings in that Christmas cheer, and if that's something everybody likes, I mean, I'm sure I'm sort of in the minority, I guess, with me saying that. But I
I
just,
get that.
yeah,
I understand where that frustration comes from because you're like, it's a month away. Like, calm down.
right, right, right. Maybe
But
it's just,
people
maybe
just love it.
right. Maybe it's just some part of the commercial space being commercial with Christmas. But hey, I guess it's a conversation
Honestly,
for another day.
honestly, like Christmas itself is a business. You have like Christmas trees, you have Christmas gifts, wraps, DIYs, Christmas music, Christmas outfits, hats, ugly sweaters, even like
Right,
Christmas is a business, it's not just a holiday anymore.
right, 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 right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Parts of society. Good stuff. Anyway, you mentioned that currently you're studying professional media and you're into videography and photography. What got you into that? Like, was there an incident that sort of triggered something, or was it just your interest, or what got you into that specifically?
Well, when I was choosing kind of like a college major,
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at mass communication and I was like, what can I do with this?
Right.
What's in it for me? And then the more I looked into it, the more I found out about like video production and filmmaking and photography and all these like media related things. And I was like, that's so cool. And it made me realize that media is truly all around us. Like, if I watch a lot of YouTube and I don't watch a lot of Netflix. I just watch shows that I like to watch personally. But YouTube I watch a lot more of. And I think people could agree with me when I say we all choose the kind of content that we want to watch online.
Mm-hmm.
Like as far as media goes, and if it's engaging, then you'll just like go back again and again. Like the way you watch your favorite YouTubers
All
or the
right.
way you watch your favorite content creators. And I remember, well, this incident probably didn't trigger the whole thing, but it's just something that stuck out to me. I remember one day watching a BuzzFeed video,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of like, this is so random, like it's BuzzFeed, but I was watching a BuzzFeed video and
Uh-huh.
they were kind of explaining how they produced a video specifically. I think it was like a fashion related video, but they were showing the behind the scenes of it, like the cameras moving and the cutting and the editing and all that stuff. And I was like, yes, like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's super cool. Like I kind of want to do that. And I was like, I think I could do that if I really, if I work hard. It looks super interesting.
Right.
And that's like on the video side of things. For photography, I've always loved taking pictures ever since I saw the first iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Like my first experience with an iPhone, I think was probably like an iPhone 3GS or something back in the day,
Back in
like
the day. Yeah.
back in the day.
Right.
But that was like I would say my first encounter with an iPhone. And I was looking at the camera. It wasn't mine. It was like someone else's. I was just a kid. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have iPhones. Well, kids nowadays have iPhones, but
Right, 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 right.
not like us kids. So it was someone else's, and I was looking at it, and the camera quality was just so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And that person at the time was actually a relative of mine. She just went to another country and she just came back home and she was showing us all her travel pictures of like mountains and rivers and all these beautiful things on her iPhone 3GS. And I was like, this is sick. Like, photography is amazing. Like, you can just go places and capture that memory
Right.
and that one single moment and bring it back with you, and like you have it forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's immortalized. Like, that moment is immortal, like in your hands. And I think that's why I love photography so much. You can just create moments like anywhere, and it forces you to kind of slow down,
Mm.
because I feel like when I have a camera in my hand and I'm going out like for a photo shoot, like it's a shoot day for me, I'll be like, okay, keep your eyes open, anything could happen, and if you snap it, like it could be a good picture, it could be a good moment. So it
Mm.
really grounds you in the moment, which
Mm-hmm.
is what I love about it, because in today's world we're so fast paced that we don't necessarily slow down to like see what's happening around us.
Mm-hmm.
So it grounds me for sure.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I have a couple of questions, but Well, I'll go with this one first. Do you see any sort of commonality between your interest in music and your interest in photography or videography, in terms of maybe a way of you expressing your creativity, or what do you find common between the two, if you were to find something in common?
Ah. Um, well, yeah, the creative aspect is definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
Like just me being someone who loves to express myself through creative mediums. I think the word that I'm looking for is probably just creating. Like I've always loved to
Right.
create.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm someone who just likes to make things out of, I guess, out of nothing. Like if I'm making a song, if I'm composing a song, that song came from nothing. It just came from like a couple melodies and a couple words and some chords. I put it together and now it's a song. Like I made it from nothing. Or if it's photography, I could take a picture of like anything. Like let's say I take a picture of a picture on my wall.
Mm-hmm.
And like I edit the picture and I make it look good and I change the lighting and whatever. And then I could like post it somewhere and put a really meaningful caption and it means something. You know what I mean? Like it something that meant nothing can now mean something if you like create it.
Right.
Yeah, and same goes with making videos. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can basically capture whatever it is that's going on or basically tell someone's story and someone who has a I mean someone who doesn't have a voice but they have a story that's worth telling. Doing that through video, through filmmaking is very worthwhile for me as someone who likes to create. I
Mm-hmm.
would say so that's a long answer, but to wrap it up, I think
Yeah.
creating is it for me, like the
Mm-hmm.
commonality. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. The second question I was going to ask, you mentioned how photography grounds you as a person, in terms of letting you experience a lot of things in this world that we live, which is very fast paced. But I think like we live in a world currently where there's also a part of society that's ready to just click every single thing that they see. So, how important is it, do you think, to sort of create that sort of balance between, okay, I want to click a picture of this and sort of immortalize this memory through this medium of photography, and then being like, okay, I just want to sit back and sort of absorb this and sort of let my memory or let my imagination sort of create this image. Like, how important do you think it is to sort of create that balance?
Oh, it's super important, super super crucial. I think if
Mm-hmm.
if you're gonna stay sane at any rate, you definitely want to strike a balance between not being on your phone all the time and trying to capture everything. I think a way that I'm doing that is that when I'm actually holding a camera in my hands, like I know it's a shoot day for me. I'm like, okay, today I'm going out, I'm going to shoot things. Then in that moment and in that day, I'm going to be super purposeful about what I want to shoot. And I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna have my eyes open, and I'll be shooting moments that are lost forever. And then later on at night, when I like come back home, I look through all the photos that I've taken that day, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I took that and it's really good and I didn't even realize I took that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a result of like me having my eyes open while I was having the camera in my hands. But on the other side of that, it's like the whole being on your phone all the time thing. That's different because I'm on my phone. It's not like a DSLR. It's not
Right.
like a shooting
Okay.
camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's your own iPhone. And I mean, yeah, nowadays with your iPhones, the camera quality is so good. You could like you don't really need a DSLR if you're not going to be like a hardcore photographer. You can just use your iPhone. But I do try to tell myself that, okay, when you're not properly holding a camera, if it's just your phone, like phone, you don't have to be so on the go with photography. Yeah, just
Mm-hmm.
enjoy whatever it is. And if I'm free, or if I'm just sitting by doing nothing and there's something happening, I'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll capture it. But if I'm engaging with a friend or I'm with family, like at a dinner, I'm not gonna be like Snapchatting like, oh, look at my family, oh, like no. I don't see the point. There's there's just no point in doing that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna act like I'm innocent. Like I've definitely been guilty of doing that in the past realm. Like every gathering that I go to, every event that I go to, I make sure it's on my Snapchat. I'm like, I do that. People do that thing where like they pan on social media, like they take a video of everyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't do that. I don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
for me, if I'm gonna be capturing something, I want it to be purposeful. If
Mm-hmm.
it's just like taking it for the sake of showing off, or not showing off, if you're just taking it for the sake of putting it on social media and then forgetting about it, then it doesn't ring true to like actually creating something. So that's kind of the difference for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
being mindful about where I'm at and what I'm actually shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably answered this while you just mentioned the whole Snapchat thing of how you take videos of people, or you used to when you used to be at gatherings. What was that? I guess breaking point is not the right word, but like, what was that inflection point that made you be like, okay, well, maybe I should step back and not do this often? Was there a certain experience that led to that happening, or was it just a random thought one day where you were like, yo, I probably shouldn't be doing this as much as I am?
Good question. I don't really know if there's a like a specific breaking point where
Mm,
I was like, no, I'm gonna stop doing this. I think it kind of happened gradually.
mm,
Or well, when I was in high school, like Snapchat was a really big thing, and all of us use Snapchat a lot. And my first year of college also did that. Yep, guilty. But I think my second year of college, I kind of slowly fell off of doing that, just
mm,
because I just got more busy. Like I just got more engaged with like what I was doing, like work wise, and like when I was doing projects, I wouldn't be so focused on my phone. I'll be more focused on like what's happening in the moment. So
right.
I just kind of stopped doing that, and it was kind of gradual, just
Mm-hmm.
over time. And then over time, as I like really stopped doing it, I would look back at like my old, like you have your archives on your Snap and Instagram, like you can see your old stuff, and I would look at that stuff and I'll be like, that's so cringy, Mars. Why did you do that? So
Mm-hmm.
cringy, like ew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
mean, speaking of finding stuff that we do cringy, I think it's common because every time like I go back and look at some of the stuff that I've done before, I'm like, yo, who was that guy? Like, what were you doing?
Right.
Yeah,
God, what kind of stuff have you like cringed about, like yourself?
good question. I mean, I think it's not a lot of social media things. Maybe it's just about things that I like remember, like memories that I
Mm-hmm.
have that I go back to, and I'm like, why, like, and yeah, it just makes me feel all like you said, makes you feel very cringy, and you're like, why was I doing this? Or like, um if I was to try and think of a memory specifically, oh, um well, maybe I should save it because I think this is a little, the one that I was thinking about was maybe a little
Mm-hmm.
too deep to share on here, but
Okay, that's
I
fine.
think I can tell you off camera, that's fine, but
Okay.
perks of being a guest. You're not going to listen to everything if you're just an audience member. But I do hope to talk about the story sometime down the road. But anyway,
Cool.
yeah, bringing it back to the conversation, I think it's common to sort of feel that way because we grow and we sort of learn from our mistakes. And I think when you see yourself making those mistakes, you're like, who was that guy? Like, why was I making those mistakes?
Yeah.
I think that also plays a role in sort of making you cringe.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
just like, ugh, like ew, when I see
Right.
my old stuff.
Yeah.
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 But you know what? It makes us grow. So that's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
Exactly.
grow from
Because
it.
yeah, right. Because now you know better. You know that you shouldn't be
Exactly.
doing that. Um,
Period.
yeah,
Period.
for sure. Uh, we're going to transition into professional media a little bit more because that being your major, and also you've been working with the campus news, U Central News, and you've
Mm-hmm.
sort of been a presenter and all those kind of things. What is it about, or how do you like it being a presenter on the news? Let's start simple.
I like it.
Mm,
It's fun for me. It's a job that I really enjoy, and I was actually an anchor on U Central News for a couple of semesters. So I did it. We're in fall, right? Yeah, I did
yeah.
it in fall 2020 and fall. Excuse me. I did it in fall 2020 and fall 2019. And please, for anyone who's watching, don't go look at my old stuff.
Just like
It's
we talked about.
it's cringe. Oh my gosh, when I look back at my old work, like it doesn't matter what it is, I just look back at it. I'm like, okay, I shut it off. I just don't
Mm,
want to look at it. But I will say that
yeah.
experience has, I've learned a lot in my first experience as an anchor, and now that I've come back for like the second time in fall 2020 and anchoring on U Central News, I've improved a lot.
Hmm.
And Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think a lot of people think anchoring is just like standing up there, like talking to a camera, but it's a lot more than that. There's a lot more work that goes into it, but I
Hmm.
enjoy it.
What is some of that work that goes into it that people probably don't see as much?
Well, first of all, you're not just an anchor, you're a reporter.
Mm,
So my job isn't just like showing up and then standing on the desk and then reading and like I leave. No, I have to being a reporter means I actually have to go out and like find stories to write about. And I have to basically the start to finish process of doing a story is not just like writing. It's not just writing. It's not like a newspaper. It's broadcasting. It's on TV. So first of all, you got to bring your camera or you got to have someone bring a camera, like a cameraman to follow you. And you got to interview whoever it is, or if it's an event, you got to film the event. And then you have to find people to talk to get like, we call it sound bites in
mm.
the like
The
media
professional
terms
media scene, yeah.
in the yeah the term for it is sound bites, but that just means like bits and pieces of audio that we can use to kind of like shape and form the story. And after we're done filming the event or the person or whatever it is, we have to take all that footage and audio and
Mhm.
whatever, take it back into like put it all in the editing software, and then write a script to go along with that, and then record our own voice to voice over the story. And whatever we're writing has to be factually accurate, because as a reporter, as a journalist, if you're not reporting accurately, then like there's
Mhm.
no point in being a reporter. So fact checking is a very big thing. You got to go check all your facts, make sure you're doing the right thing, make sure you're saying the right thing, and then putting it all together like as a video, as a complete thing, and then submitting it to our tech people who are going to be like transferring it onto the newscast and like putting it on live when we're on the news. And so as an anchor, if I'm like reporting on my own stories, I'll be like on the desk and I'll kind of give a little introduction of the story that I reported on. I'll be like, for example, I'll just be like, here's the latest on the coronavirus story at UCO. Mardiana Malek has the latest. And then they'll play my video that I went out and filmed and edited and wrote. And then after that, after the video, I'll have to do like a short little outro before the next story comes on. So it's a whole process. It's a whole process, but people don't necessarily see that all the time
Mm.
because we don't show it. We just show like what's on the news, what's on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fair, because I think it's a part of every profession. When you look at it from the outside, you're like, oh, this seems pretty easy. Like I can go do this. But then when you actually go
Right.
there and you sort of peel the curtain, there's a lot of things that you don't see that are quite challenging in terms of just being in the zone of like you
Yeah,
said, being credible as a reporter and sort of getting the things right and all those kind of things.
for sure.
It's interesting how we tend to sort of, I guess forget is the wrong word, but we tend to not see that there's a lot that happens behind the scenes that we don't see. And
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I just thought of something. Can
yeah,
I?
go for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So this is just like general knowledge, general like fun facts for anyone who's like curious how the broadcasting world works. So if you're watching like the anchors on TV, they're just like standing at a desk or sitting at a desk, right? And it appears that they're just like talking seamlessly, but they're actually reading words off a teleprompter. And the teleprompter is the thing that like scrolls the words down. So the words are just gonna like going and we're just reading it. And there's a person behind the scenes who's actually controlling the words, like controlling the speed of the words according to the speed that we read. And if that person is not experienced, the words might just whoop, they'll just all go up and I'll have nothing to read, or the words will be too slow and I'll have nothing to read. So
Yeah.
depends on the person behind the scenes, but like as an anchor, it's our job to stay composed. And there are a lot of people working behind the scenes to make this whole thing happen. There's so many, like there's a big crew of us, but the only people you see on screen are the anchors, and it's our job to stay as composed as possible. Wow, I was about to swear but I caught myself. The
Right.
It's our job to stay as composed when things go crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when things go crazy behind the scenes, and like if we're lacking, let's say if we don't have enough people to be running the cameras that day and our people have to be running up and down and it's just like a flurry of chaos, it's our job to just be like, okay, like don't let it affect you. Your job is just like sit here and look professional and like deliver the news. And another thing is that we have an in-ear, we call it the IFB, that's what we call
Mm-hmm.
it, but it's a little in-ear thing that you put in your ear, and the producer behind the scenes is like telling you your cues to like when you go on, and
Yeah.
like things of that nature. They're just like cueing you to go on, and sometimes those things stop working.
Oh.
So I don't have a cue. Yeah, it's happened like multiple times. Wow, so many times it's happened, and it's so easy for me to just want to panic, because I'll be like,
Right.
hello, like, I can't hear you, like talk to me, like when's my cue to go on, like I don't know when to go
Right.
on.
Right.
But it's my job to just be like be super alert in the moment, and I'll be like, okay, like I can't hear anything, my FV's gone out, the battery's dead or something, I don't know what it is, but I gotta figure it out. So I'll just like be there and like be super alert and try to just like catch it when it comes on, like try to look at the correct cameras when they come on. And that's the thing, like there are multiple cameras, we have 3 cameras, sometimes even 4.
Yeah.
So you got to look at the right ones, because you got to make eye contact with the right camera. So I just got to be super alert, even if there's no one in my ear cueing me to go on, there's no one telling me what to do. It's just my job to be like stay composed and stay alert and just keep it together, because you're on
Right.
air. And when you're
Right.
on air, if you mess up, you mess up. If you fumble, you fumble. It's just there forever. So
Right. Right. Right.
yep. That's one of the downsides. Like there's no pre-recording, there's no editing. It's just live. It's all live. Yep.
Do you have any stories of those fumbles that you'd like to share if you have any?
Oh my God. Yes, I do have one. This is so embarrassing. If any of my Youth Central friends are watching this, y'all know what I'm talking about. So there was this one time when I think someone from the industry, like a news person, I think he was a director or a producer, like a professional in the industry, was actually watching our newscast on that particular day. And that day, I was super tongue-tied. For some reason, I just couldn't get my words out right. One of those days where you just can't talk,
Yeah.
it was just one of those days. I just couldn't say things right. And it was actually the first story of the newscast, the first story, like the opening story. And I was reading that story and I just couldn't for the life of me get it out of my mouth. And I was just like, you know what? I even remember the word. It was the word hospitalization. I couldn't say that. So I was like, like I just couldn't. And it was so just excruciating, embarrassing. And I think I just kind of like glossed over the word and I just went on to
Right.
the next word. I just read everything else, tried
Yeah.
my best to stay as calm as possible. And it was so bad because that was the top of the show, the first story, and it's the opening, like, welcome to Youth Central News. I'm Mardiana, Malek. Here's the first story, and I'm messing it up. And after the show, our supervisor, she comes in because after every show we have like a little meeting for the crew and the team, and our supervisor, she comes in and she's like, okay, so like this person from the industry was watching the show today, he was watching it from top to bottom. And I was like
Great.
Jesus
Right.
Christ, like and the thing about these people, like these industry professionals that watch our show, they're watching it because they want to know how we're doing, like as a collegiate newscast, as a student run broadcast. They want to know like what's our standard, like how good are we actually fit for the industry, or are we just like a bunch of college students fooling around, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I will say, like, in Youth Central's defense, we are pretty professional. We run things as professionally as we can. Like, we try to be at the industry standard. But it was just that day, like, I just couldn't speak. And I was like, great, I just ruined it for everyone. This guy, this professional probably thinks that I'm a very underqualified anchor, underqualified to read, can't speak English, whatever. But I was just like, okay, I'm gonna get over it. It's okay. We have more shows. I'm just gonna keep improving with every show. So that's a thing as well. Like you just keep improving as you go along.
Fair.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was so excruciating and embarrassing. I don't think I can remember anymore, like top of my head. Yeah.
That's probably the one that's on the top of the list as being the
Yep.
most embarrassing. That's
Yep.
fair. I think it's a lesson in life. Like, we all there's I almost cursed there too. there's things that we learn, or there's mistakes that we make from which we have to learn, even if it's embarrassing. So you sort of have to
Yeah.
just move on and pick it up. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned composure being an anchor. You have to be composed even if like something happens. I cussed almost again. Wow.
Same.
Wow. But do you feel like that composure sort of spills into your personal life in any way, or does it help you as a person in terms of being composed?
Yeah, for sure. It depends on the situation that I have to be in. But um I think this is kind of interesting. Like now that you're talking about it, I kind of found a link between performing, like being on stage, music, dancing, whatever it is, and being live on TV with You Central, it's the whole composure thing. Like you gotta know when to turn everything off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like all the distractions, all the noise around you, whatever people are saying to you, or like even if you're having a bad day and there's a lot on your mind, you just gotta be like, okay, switch off, we're on, we're live, we're going, like right now. This is the moment, and you're just like focused in that moment. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be super present. If you're
Right.
not present, you're not going to be able to focus on delivering the best that you can at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's things like these that you only get one shot. Like if you're on stage and you're doing a performance, you only get one shot for that. You know, I mean, you can practice it 10,000 times, but that audience is only going to see you once. That's your
Right.
one shot. If you're on the news, like I can practice my scripts, I can read it 1,000 times, but when I'm on the camera, when I'm on live, that's it. That's my one shot. So that is one thing I've learned, like, you know, really holding my composure and turning distractions and noise off when I
Mm-hmm.
need to, and just focusing on what I have to do, which really helps with things like, I don't know, things that are nervous. I mean, things that make me feel nervous. So like
Mm-hmm.
interviews, you know, if you're going for a job interview, that really comes in handy. Or like if I'm having some kind of exam that I'm really nervous for, that also really comes in handy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really helps.
Cool. We're going to transition into something slightly different.
Mm.
Based off of the news, we're going to maybe find a segue in some way. Before we came on to this call, we spoke about social media being one of the topics of discussion today. I wanted to ask you, being a person who also posts a lot of your stuff on social media, and being someone who is a part of a newscast and a collegiate well, I lost my train of thought in terms of my words. But basically, you're part of a newscast. So social media has also turned into this newscast of its own, if you will. Um, what are some of the highlights and the lowlights of that overlap between the news and social media?
This is something we actually talk about a lot, like among like media people, people in my major, people in the journalism field. We talk a lot about this. And the well, I don't really want to say the problem, but the
Mm-hmm.
issue with social media is that you don't really know what's real or what's fake news.
Mm,
Everything that you see online, you're like, oh my gosh, that's news. And news is news because you haven't heard it before. It's new to you, right? So that's why it's like,
right.
yeah. So, but the problem is you don't always know if it's real or if it's accurate or if it's just someone's opinion. And social media is so flooded with opinions, and it's kind of dangerous because listening to the wrong opinions and being kind of like if you're, let's say if you're listening to this opinion and you just dive deeper and deeper into that and it's a wrong opinion and you're just going that way constantly, then everything you're believing is just going to be the wrong direction.
Mm,
And that's kind of scary. Like you could be totally misled and misinformed and you wouldn't even know. And I think that's a little bit scary, you know?
mm-hmm.
And that's also a big part of why politics and people are so divided with politics nowadays, because you pretty much choose what you want to listen to. I would say with traditional news, it's it's um it's kind of like it's factual, it's objective, and it's made by like reporters and journalists and writers who are actually, they actually have a job to do, which is
Mm,
deliver news that is factual and accurate. But if you're just getting all your news from social media, then you don't know that that's accurate, but you still
right.
believe it anyway because you believe the opinions of those people who are seeing it. So it gets dangerous for
Mm.
sure. Does that
What are
answer
some of
your
the
question?
positives? It does. It does answer one part of the question, but what are some of the
Right.
positives that come out of it because of that? Like, what what are some of the positives that overlap brings?
Positives. Oh, the positives are definitely the speed of which things can be delivered. So, you know, if breaking news happens at 5 p.m. and
Mm,
the news on TV is the 6 o'clock news, it's gonna go on at 6 o'clock. But on social media, it's like if I, as a reporter or a journalist or a media person, if I can get there in time and film whatever it is, then it's going up as soon as it goes up, you know?
mm,
And people have early access to whatever is going on. And if it's urgent, we can get the help that we need, we can get the attention that we need, especially if it's a time sensitive topic, then
mm.
it definitely helps a lot. That's, yeah, the speed of it, I would say, is how social media really helps. And anything else? I think just the speed. I can't think of anything else right now because it's all a lot of opinions. That's
Mm.
like a really big negative. Yeah.
Do you think social media makes it a lot more accessible in terms of like being aware of what happens? Let's say, like if I was in India and like something happened over here in Edmond, I think, or do you think that social media has sort of helped us find out about things that are happening around the world a lot quicker?
Yeah, for sure. And social media is made for us to be social, and where a lot of us are
Yeah.
using that to our benefit. I guess I could say that like anything that's happening back home for me, like same thing. If it's something's happening in Malaysia, I know that it's happening. Pretty sure it's the same for you. Anything big happening in India, you know about it like right
Right.
then and there. Even though our time zones are just incredibly different, it's like it's tomorrow there and yesterday here, but
Yeah.
we still know what's up.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
that's thanks to social media. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that is a really big positive thing, and it also helps to create awareness, especially for things that need like mass attention, and it's like a big movement like Black Lives Matter and climate change and all these issues that we need to be kind of talking about as a whole, as society. Social media really connects people
Mm-hmm.
in terms of things like this, because we can't gather in person all the time, especially if it's across the world and things like that. But with social media, I can be an activist even if I'm not physically there.
Mm.
And this applies to so many people. Like that's why the Black Lives Matter movement was just like everywhere online, and climate change and like feminism and all these other really broad issues.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Social media is also like a channel that we use to sort of express our creativity.
Mhm.
And you're someone that does it yourself. I think we sort of addressed that initially, but um, what for you as a person who's also involved in the news through the means of social media, um, how is that dynamic? Like I personally, I kind of find that a little interesting because you're also sharing the news through a different channel, but on your personal channel, you're on your personal account, you're sharing your creativity or whatever. Like I find the juxtaposition of that quite interesting. So are there some commonalities that you see over there?
What do you mean? Like what kind of commonalities?
Maybe in the sense of being able to share something with a lot more ease, I guess. Because back in the day, if you wanted to show something that you did as a person, that accessibility is not there, or that accessibility wasn't there. Do you think that maybe this is just a question that sort of sounded good in my head, but as I'm asking it, I've sort of lost the plot. But but I think that social media is like a space where people can share the news, people can share their creativity, and a lot of those things that, like opinions for that matter. I think a lot of what we share is our perspective, is our opinion, is our creativity, be it the news or be it our art or whatever it is. Um, what are some of the positives and negatives of social media, you think?
Well, gosh, this is such a big topic. I could go on about this like forever, but well, social media obviously is so good for really reaching out to communities that you originally probably wouldn't have
Mm.
reached. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So like, for example, if I'm really connecting with a particular YouTuber who talks about issues that I really resonate with, and I'll be like, yeah, like that makes a lot of sense. And I can kind of like follow that person on their online journey, and based on what they're posting, I can dive more into their content. And then it kind of leads into this gateway of like opening my eyes to new creators and new content that I resonate with, but I didn't know about before, because I did, like, I only knew about it when I knew about this content creator who branches out into so many things. And it's like one thing leads to another. And that's kind of how like you gain information about new things that you're interested about. Like, for example, I think an example of this would be like LGBTQ plus people and the LGBTQ plus community. Like when I was like growing up in Malaysia, there's not a lot of exposure to LGBTQ plus communities,
Hmm.
especially because Malaysia is I would say it's a kind of conservative country, as especially the people who run it, the people who rule it. They are in that conservative mindset. The younger generation is different though, but I would say we're different because we grew up with the internet, so we have access to things like that. And then we watch YouTube or we watch Netflix or whatever it is, like receive content from people who are not, they're not the ones like ruling our country, but they're like people from outside of that bubble. And then we kind of, our eyes are open to that, and we're like, oh my gosh, like this exists, like LGBTQ plus is a thing. I was like, what? Like, I remember distinctly, I think I was like 12 or 13,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like watching stuff online, and I was like, what, gay people can get married? Like, wow. Like, it's crazy. I mean, I don't identify as gay, but you know, it was just really interesting and eye-opening for me to learn about that. And that's how I kind of became more open-minded to things like that. And you know, I guess the older generation can't say the same because they didn't grow up with that kind of things, so to them it's still like taboo, and they'll be like, oh, ew, like same-sex couples, ew. But for the younger generation, it's like, yeah, you know, I've seen it happen. People get married, people are together, like love is love and all these kind of things. So it just made me more open-minded. And that's, yeah, I would say that's what I really like about social media. I just get to be exposed to things that I wouldn't have the reach
Mm-hmm.
to, things that I wouldn't have immediate exposure to in my daily life, or things that I don't learn from school. I can just go online and learn about it. Or like music. A lot of my biggest musical inspirations are like my favorite musicians and everything that they do, you know, they put it online, and I just see it online. If I was trying to get it in person, I would never get it.
Right.
So yeah. Negatives. Did you ask about negatives?
Yeah. I was gonna say, before you mention negatives, do you want to plug the podcast that you did for a project?
Oh, right. Yes. So, if anyone watching this right now is interested in a podcast, my friends and I, well, actually, my classmates and I, because this was a class project, but we made a podcast called the Antisocial Social Podcast. And the the themes in this podcast is basically social media, Gen Z, and mental health. It's kind of, we had an umbrella of covering those three things, and we decided that we would be the best people to talk about it because we are Gen Z, like we are, I guess, millennials, cusp Gen Z type of thing. And social media, because we grew up with it, it's something that was like into our lives before we even knew what was going on. It was in
Mm-hmm.
our lives. And mental health, because that is such a big thing. People need to be talking about mental health more. You know, I feel like physical health is something very, it's very objective and it's very concrete. People are like, okay, if you want to improve your physical health, go to gym, drink more water, eat healthy. But no one's really like, if you want to improve your mental health, do A, B, and C. That's not really taught in schools. That's not really taught by our parents. It's just kind of like taboo or like shamed. Or if you're saying, you know what, I feel anxious, I feel depressed, maybe I should see a therapist, people are like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
if I say, you know what, I'm not feeling that great, maybe I should go to the gym. My friends would be support. I mean, not just friends, but like people would be supportive. They'll be like, yeah, go to gym. Like that's great. You should do that anyway. You know? So I feel like physical health and mental health, it just goes hand in hand. And I don't really know why there's such a big stigma against mental health when we should just treat it the same as physical health. It really just
Right.
correlates. It really just goes together.
Mm-hmm.
So bringing it back to the podcast, our topics are just those three things, and we just hope to shed light on more of that. So if you want to find us on YouTube, you can just search the Antisocial Social Podcast, and we're also on Spotify, Anchor, Deezer, whatever podcast platforms you have. Google Podcast, yeah, we're on there too. So
Mm-hmm.
you guys can check it out. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I wanted to bring that out because I would bring that up rather because I had one question that I was going to ask based off of the research that you all did. I mean, because I've listened to all the episodes and there was a lot of good points that you all brought out about the negative implications that social media has in terms of mental health and things like that. During your research to like speak about these topics, was there something that stood out to you that you were like, oh, I never really thought about that? Like, how did I not know about this? Was there something like that that sort of popped up while you were doing research or working on the podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So have you seen this documentary called The Social Dilemma? It's on Netflix.
I've heard about it. I've yet to watch it though.
Highly recommend it. You
Mm-hmm.
guys, like, anyone who's watching, if you're free, if you have a moment, if you're looking for something to watch and you like documentaries, this documentary, The Social Dilemma, it will blow your mind. And basically what they talked about is how social media is wired to, it's psychologically wired to what's the word, to attract your attention.
Mm.
So it's not, it's not just something that's on your phone and you can just like go on it and like have fun. I mean, it is, but the reason why we do it as a habit every day and the reason why it's so addictive is because it's wired to be so addictive. It's made to be so addictive. And also, I think in the documentary they mentioned that there are two types of apps in general, just like apps. So the first kind of apps are things that are just, they have their specific functionality. So like your alarm clock app, or like your weather app, your reminders, notifications, like that kind of thing. It does a certain specific thing for you. And once you're done with
Mm-hmm.
it, you won't open it for no reason. But social media, if you really think about it, what is like the specific purpose of it? Apart from connecting with people, apart from being social, but what is it like? What is its pure function that keeps you going back to it again and again? And you use it more than any of the apps on your phone. Like I'm pretty sure all of us can say that the most used apps on our phones, like the top five, among the top five, the at least two or three are social apps.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically, the creators of these apps have merged psychology and technology and like human psyche to create this thing that basically keeps you going back again and again. And sometimes, I used to do this. I mean, I'm a lot more mindful of it now, like in the recent years. But I used to do this
Mm-hmm.
when I first got social media. I would just like open it and I just like be on it for hours, and then after that, I'll close the app and I'll be like, what did I just do today? I did nothing. I was just on this app for hours and I did nothing. So it's kind of scary to think about that. Like you're just, well, I don't want to say wasting your life, but you're just spending your time, you're spending your life away, just swiping on screens, and then no action is being taken on it. You're just consuming things
Mm-hmm.
mindlessly,
Mm-hmm.
and that's scary. So yeah, from the research that I did, I realized how much of social media is actually wired to be that way, and it's not an accident that we're addicted. It's no accident at all. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of scary. I think people should be more mindful of it. And it
Mm-hmm.
definitely helps now that we have our screen time. You can check your screen time, how much time you're spending on your phone, how much time you're spending on each app. So that definitely helps to like keep people in check.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's that concept of, I don't know if you've heard this word. I think this is a Twitter word. Like, I think a lot of people in Twitter or who use Twitter use this lingo. It's called cheap dopamine. Have you heard that term before? I mean, you know.
I have never heard the term. Just I'm not on Twitter a lot. I don't even use Twitter, to be
Okay.
honest. So I
Mm-hmm.
haven't heard the term, but now that you're saying it, it makes a lot of sense. Cheap dopamine. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Because it's like eye candy. Like, I mean, and not necessarily figuratively, but it could be metaphorically as well. A lot of things that we see on social media, like it sort of grabs our attention, and it's sort of like that constant loop of, oh, you swipe something, you see something, it makes you happy, you want to be more happy, you swipe something up again, and like you're constantly sort of trying to seek that happiness, if you will. I mean, it does make you happy, but I think there's a larger sense or a larger or a better way of being happy than seeking stuff on social media to be happy. But yeah, I think cheap dopamine is like a concept, like you just said, how it's psychologically wired to be that way, and it's not an accident at all. I think it is that concept of cheap dopamine, like to use it as a
Yeah,
layman's term, that keeps us
yeah,
going back to it,
for
which is very
sure.
interesting.
For sure. And
Yeah,
I feel like it's called cheap dopamine because it's not something that you have to work hard to attain. You just open the app and it's there. Like if we're going to take
exactly,
TikTok is the most perfect example of it. And that's why TikTok
exactly,
is so
100%.
scary. TikTok is so scary to me because of this whole cheap dopamine concept. So like you're on it and watching these little videos like gives you satisfaction or it gives you happiness and you're laughing at it and whatever. Like in that moment, that's the cheap dopamine. But once it's turned off, you're like, crap, what do I do now with real life? Like, do I go out and like
Mm,
play or like do I actually do something physically that I have to like move? So it takes effort. And you're like, you know what? That's too much effort. Let me just be on my phone. So you go back to that cheap dopamine. And it's so unhealthy. We have to do things more. We have to
mm-hmm,
actually get, physically be doing things, whether it's, I don't know, whether it's okay, well, I guess not physically, like if you're working your brain mentally, like if you're reading a book or if you're listening to a podcast, like you're actually learning something consciously, or if you're going out to play sports, you're exercising, playing an instrument, drawing, art, whatever it is, you're doing something. you're
mm-hmm,
you're having, instead of having input, you're having output. Does that make
mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah, 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 for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And I
Yeah.
think that loop of input is very quick, or it's very fast, and it's very constant with things like TikTok or Reels or etc. and etc. But doing things
Yeah.
like you said, like sort of going out of your way and staying away from your phone and doing things that, like, going to the gym or whatever, like the output for your input takes a lot longer to sort of reach that equilibrium. So yeah, that's why we
For
sort of
sure.
still seek out that cheap dopamine. I mean, we're not trying
Yeah.
to throw shade on people who use Twitter or Reels, but I think it's just about trying to be mindful about your
Yeah.
usage, because we've all been there. Like, we've all been in those moments where, oh, Instagram, cool picture or cool story. You're just constantly looking at stories, and then you look at the clock and it's been an hour, since you've been on those
Yeah.
stories. So we've all
Yeah.
done that, but it's just sort of that aspect of being mindful of the fact that um, we can seek dopamine through a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to be cheap.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't completely just want to be, throwing shade on social media when social media has really benefited me so much. Like I've
Right.
learned so many things from social media. So, I guess something that we should all do is just be mindful of our media diet. Think
Mm-hmm.
of what you're consuming online. Think of it as your diet, right? Like what you're eating, you're consuming food, right? So that's your nutritional diet. If you're consuming online things like for 3 hours a day, like on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, that is your media diet.
Yeah.
And like to be healthy mentally, you gotta have a good media diet.
Mm-hmm.
Like it all makes sense. It all just
100%.
ties in together. So you got, if the basics of a diet is you got to monitor what goes in, you got to monitor what you consume and make sure it benefits you. And if it doesn't benefit you, it's easy when we're talking about it in terms of food. Like let's say I love chocolate, I love Kit Kats, I love Oreos, but I know having a lot of it's not good for me, so I'm going to cut down on it. Same thing with media. Like if you're watching the same things over and over again that don't benefit you and you feel like you're not learning anything, it's just like cheap dopamine, but it's not benefiting you truly, then just, cut it off. Don't need that. 2020 is toxic enough. We don't need any more of that stuff.
Fair,
Don't need it.
fair,
Yeah.
fair. To close off this section and to transition into the closing end of this podcast, I'm just gonna say, I don't know if you've heard of this person by the name of Naval Ravikant. He's sort of like this. People call him like a new age philosopher, if you will. He's this angel investor and all those kind of things, and he's quite active on Twitter. And he puts out quite mind or thought provoking sort of tweets. And he mentioned something along the lines of how social media today is framing how we think as people, and how it's creating certain echo chambers, or how it's sort of making us feel towards different people, and all those kind of things. Like, it has this huge influence on how we think about many different things, which is why one of the reasons I wanted to which is one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, to sort of um, get to know things a little more deeply compared to just looking at the surface, if you will. So I think whatever it be, like, it doesn't have to be necessarily a podcast. It could be reading a book, or it could be going outside. Like, we probably need to go deeper into things rather than just looking at the surface and sort of assuming that to be the truth.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned that social media is like seeing things on the surface,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I think that's also a really big thing that kind of it social media impacts the way we absorb information and the way we learn things. And I was just listening to this the other day. I don't remember if it was like a podcast or something. I don't remember where I heard it, but this person was saying that 20 years ago, if you wanted to learn something, you would pick up a book or you would go to someone who actually knows about it and you would learn
Hmm.
about that thing,
Yeah.
and you really dive into it in depth. But nowadays, if you're going to learn something, it's just like, how do I put this? Your attention span is so much shorter.
Oh
And a
yeah,
lot of
100%. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of people don't have the patience to pick up a book and read it back like front to back and learn about the thing anymore, or they don't have the patience to like actually go seek it out. Because why spend your attention somewhere else when you can just get your quick dose of dopamine? You
Mm.
don't have to put in so much effort to whatever it is. So it
Yeah.
definitely impacts us. I think it'll be interesting to see like 30 years down the road how people then are different from people now, just like in the way we do things.
Yeah,
I don't
for
know.
sure.
It'll
For
be
sure.
interesting.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's very a part of it can be scary in terms of trying to think of how different the world might be, but at the same time I think there's a lot of positives that we could take out of it too. I think if used properly, I think we can bring people together rather than tear them apart.
For
So yeah.
sure.
Anyway, transitioning into the latter stages of this podcast, we're gonna get into this segment called. I always laugh in my head before I say this because the name is a little funny. But the name of the segment is Bish Bash Bosh. And for those of you who are listening for the first time, Bish Bash Bosh was inspired by this by this video, or not video specifically, but I watch a lot of soccer content that's based off of the UK. And when a person kicked a ball, they made the sound Bosh. And one random day, I was like, oh, like bash also rhymes with like Bosh. And I was like, bish, bash, bosh. Bingo.
Okay.
I'm going to make that a thing. So we're trying this new segment out where basically the theme of it is I'm going to give you 5 words. And I'd like for you to respond to those 5 words in either 3 words or 3 phrases. For example, if I was to say social media, what are the 3 words that come to your mind? That kind
Like
of thing.
association.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. I
Yeah.
get it.
But we call
That's
it
fine.
bish bash bosh over here.
Okay. Got it, got it, got it.
Cool. Okay. So the first word is differences. What pops up into your mind when I say the word differences?
I can say anything.
Anything. 3 words. 3 words. 3 phases that come to your mind. Anything when I say these words, like differences, for example, being the first word.
Um, diversity,
Mm-hmm.
culture, and gosh, I can. Oh, this is hard. Diversity, culture, and empathy.
Empathy. Interesting. Interesting that you picked empathy. Um, Second word, nuance.
Nuance. Ooh. This is hard.
Whatever comes to your mind. It doesn't have to be well. We live in a world where political correctness is important, but
Yes.
whatever comes to your mind, whatever comes to your mind.
Nuance. Details,
Okay,
music, emotions.
interesting, cool. The third word, learning.
Learning. Effort, focus, determination.
Cool, I like it. I like those 3 words. Empathy. Fourth word.
Empathy. Empathy. Connection, friendship, um, the everlasting.
Nice, I like it. The last word, similarities.
Similarities. Ooh. Bonding,
Mm-hmm.
chilling,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a phrase. I can think
Go
of
for it.
phrases,
That's
but it's
fine.
not a word. Building the relationships.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Cool. Beautiful. I like all those answers because I think the reason why I wanted to start something like or use this segment was to see how people respond differently to the same words because I'm using the same 5 words that I ask everybody or I'll ask everybody who's coming on the same 5 words and we're going to see just sort of how they respond to those things. So I like how you responded to nuance or differences of empathy. So yeah, cool. That was really
How's
beautiful.
that been? I'm so curious, but you probably can't tell me, right?
Well, for that, so maybe this is a bit of a teaser, but go follow Random Relatability on Instagram because on Instagram, I'm going to be uploading these segments of Bish Bash Bosh every week. So every guest that I have on, I'm going to upload their segment on Instagram. So go check those out too, and listen to the podcast too. You know,
Cute.
get the whole meal. You know, get the full happy meal.
Cute. Yes, do that for sure. That's gonna be good promo.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Anyway, transitioning into the last 2 questions of this episode. The first one being, how would you relate to someone who probably doesn't believe or not believe, well, who probably doesn't follow the same principles as you? Or if, for example, if someone likes metal music and you're not a person that likes metal music, that's just a random example, but like, how would you relate to people that don't necessarily follow the same things that you do?
Well, I think just trying to understand where they're coming from is a really big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy for people to get defensive when they realize that they're not being agreed with and they automatically just like put up this wall of like okay, I'm just gonna like disagree with you because I'm right and you're wrong. But we just have to kind of be more empathy is the word. We have to be more empathetic and try to understand where that person's coming from. Like I know people who love metal, and I ask them, what do you like metal? Like, what do you like about it? And some people say it helps me sleep, and I'll be like, great, good for you.
Wow, good for you though. Good for you. That is, I can't imagine doing that myself, but great, good on you. Yeah,
I'm not even kidding. Like, not
yeah.
even kidding. That's what people say. So I'll be like, okay. So it helps them to sleep. It puts them in a good mood. Okay, great. You know, it doesn't apply to me. The same concept of them doing that doesn't apply to me. But at least I understand where they're coming from. And that's just like a lifestyle thing, like music. It doesn't affect me. But if it's politics and it's something like bigger, then it's even more important to be even more empathetic and try to understand like what reasons do you have for siding with like that party that I don't agree with, and like what is it about that party that you agree with.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. I think especially in the generation that we're living in today, because of things like social media and how everything is so surface level, it's very easy for us to sort of draw conclusions and be like, oh, that's why this person is doing this, or that's why this person is doing that. So, like you said, I think being empathetic is very important in today's world, at least. And I think that's one of the ways that we can definitely connect with a lot more people. So,
Yeah.
a great
and
answer.
and the echo chamber is a big thing as well.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's so easy for us to be caught up in our own echo chambers. So once we're out of the echo chamber and we find someone who disagrees with us, we should actually be more alert. We should be like, oh, there's someone who disagrees, let me find out why.
Yeah, I agree 100%. 100%. Great answer. To close
Thanks.
us off for the last question of this episode, if there's a positive thought or a positive quote or whatever positive that comes to your mind that you want to leave the audience with today, what would that be?
Ah, positive quote.
Anything positive, whatever it might be.
Any positive quote. Okay, so this quote that I'm gonna use is from someone I know. He was a therapist, but he gave me this quote. It's find value in what you do. Find value in what you do. So, for example, if you're going through like well, for anyone who's watching, if you're going through a really tough time in life and you're wondering like, why is this being sent my way, like what is the purpose of me doing this, trying to find value in that, and it helps you to keep going. And I know this is a lot easier said than done, obviously,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's really all about perspective. If you think what you're doing is just like complete crap and you hate it, don't want to be there, don't want to do it, obviously you're going to be bad at doing it, or you're going to be depressed, you're going to feel bad doing it. But finding the value in it, like finding why this is essential to you. Like if you're working at a job you hate, the value in that is you're earning money, you're gaining something, which is you're earning money, you're having a job, you're keeping your family afloat, you're
Yeah.
able to, and like that's the value in doing it. So until you can find a better job, finding value in your current job that you kind of hate makes it more bearable in that sense. Or even if it's not something that big, like a job, even if it's like a creative endeavor, like if anyone's trying to start a new creative project, or they're just like afraid of rejection, afraid of people crapping on them, I was about to swear, but
Yeah.
afraid of stuff like that,
Yeah.
just remember to find the value in what you do and be like, why am I doing this? What is the value in this? Why did I start in the first place? Am I doing it for other people, or am I doing it for myself? Like, what is the reason behind starting this thing? And that'll just help to push you along as you keep going on your creative project. So that's the piece of advice I have.
Beautiful. It's very deep. It's
Thanks.
very deep, and I like that you chose that to sort of close this off. I'm gonna close this off with another tweet I read. Well, if you don't know already, I've probably mentioned Twitter already on this episode a lot. But I read this tweet yesterday that said, "Believe that things happen for you rather than to you." You know.
For
So
sure.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah. And on that note, we're going to close off episode 3 of Perspective Platoon. Thank you so much, Mars, for coming on today. I really appreciate you taking the time off and like talking about a lot of random stuff. I
Thanks
really
for
appreciate it.
having me. It was
Yeah.
fun. I can't wait to see the rest of the episodes.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching and listening. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Perspective Platoon with Prateek. And if you'd like to connect with me, my Instagram handle is @mardiana.x. And please go check out my new music on Spotify and Apple Music and other streaming platforms. And once again, thank you for joining in the conversation with us today. Leave a comment down below if you relate to any of the things that we talked about. And since you've made it this far, you might as well like the video, you might as well subscribe, and follow Random Relatability on all social media platforms. As Prateek would say, remember to keep your mind open to different perspectives, because you never know when random relatability could just be around the corner. Aha, I memorized it. Take care and stay safe.